Good evening and welcome to the public meeting of the Halton District School Board for Wednesday, I'm reading the wrong one here. Wednesday, January the 8th, 2019. At this moment, I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is video voice recorded and live streamed from the hdsb.ca website. I'd also like to ask that you turn any of your devices to silent mode. On a sad note, today we did hear tragic news of the crash of the Ukrainian International Airlines flight that was lost this morning, leaving Tehran. So our collective thoughts are with the families of the 176 passengers and crew that were on board, especially with the 63 Canadians from across the country. This evening, the trustees, we just have one that's missing right now is Trustee Amos. If she is supposed to be calling in, and Trustee Collard is on the line. All the superintendents are in the room this evening. This evening, Trustee Daniele will be honoring the land.
Thank you. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawaddaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest this evening? Seeing none. Next, we're up to the agenda, and I understand that we need to add an item number 231, PAR update presentation. And so with that in mind, is there any further discussion at all on the agenda this evening? Seeing none. So could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Thank you, Trustee Gray and Trustee Daniele. Jean. All those in favor? Oh, Trustee Amos has now joined us on the line. And that carries unanimously. She's voted as well. Thank you. Now we are up to the Inspire Awards. This is a great way to start the new decade. So everyone in the Halton District School Board community can nominate or be nominated: families, neighbors, related organizations, staff, students, and school volunteers. The Inspire Award is given to an individual or a group that is formally or informally associated with the Halton District School Board who support our students and their achievements through exemplary caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. Award recipients choose where they would like to receive their award, and this evening we have 4 Inspire Awards, though we may only have 3 if the person doesn't show up. So we are missing 1 person at this point. Hopefully she will appear soon. Okay, so for the first one, I actually need to pass the gavel over to Vice Chair Harris.
Awesome, thank you. And welcome to everybody who's joined us here this evening. I would like to invite Chair Gerbens and Trustee Gray, as well as Tracy Peters and Tracy Wilkinson from Alton Village Public School to come on up. Thank you so much for being here. So let me just tell you about Tracy and Tracy, the recipients of this award. Tracy Peters and Tracy Wilkinson are a dedicated pair who chair the Alton Village School Council. They're valued members of the Alton Village community, as each of them has made a meaningful difference in the lives of students through their remarkable leadership on the school council. Both Tracys take their positions as co-chairs very seriously. They are an effective voice for parents, and through their roles, they encourage parent engagement and ultimately student success. Tracy and Tracy never fail to keep their focus on what's best for students. Their leadership has been instrumental in making a positive impact on parent and student engagement. From organizing fun fairs, holiday shops, PETA days, dance-a-thons, and the creation of the school council newsletter, their involvement is really and truly endless. Their dedication, wisdom, willingness to learn and share, question and research helps make Alton Village a better place to live, learn, and thrive. Thank you so much on behalf of the trustees. Thank you. Please feel free to come right up and take a great picture. Don't be shy. Excellent.
Okay, so our next, I will now be calling Trustee Garrett's up, and I'd like to call Imran Aside up. Okay, just need my glasses here. Iram is an educational assistant at Hawthorne Village Public School. She is tremendous support to students, providing them with positive affirmations, guidance, and a caring approach to their learning and well-being. Iram is known to place inspirational quotes and words of encouragement around the school for students and staff. She demonstrates empathy daily and always considers the thoughts, feelings, and goals of the students she interacts with. Her patience and grace in every situation is valued by staff and families, and she is familiar and warm. She's a familiar and warm face to students. Iram inspires fellow staff members to always be kind, caring, and supportive. Congratulations. Just gonna get out of the way.
Okay, I would like to invite Nikki McCallum from Student Services New Street Education Center to come and receive your wonderful award. So let me tell you about Nikki. She's a child and youth counselor in the Board of Student Services Department. She's an inspiration to many. Her work ethic and drive never fail to deliver the very best to students and staff. Fellow staff members value Nikki's kindness, her humor, and the camaraderie she instills throughout the department. She's a driving force in her role on the mental health team and has worked to develop and teach others to deliver fantastic evidence-based programming for students. Nikki's ability to build strong and supportive relationships has helped many children and their families. Thank you very much, Nikki, for all that you do.
gallery who want pictures are welcome to come up too.
I'm going behind. I'm so tall. I'm super tall.
Okay, so that way.
That's a top door. Watch it. I use that more to make my door get away. One more.
Thank you. Just give them a second to release. Well,
Thank you so much for coming. You're welcome to come back anytime and stay as long as you want. We do really exciting things in here.
So Annette Winslow was supposed to receive her award this evening, but she was not able to make it. So we will arrange a different time for that. But otherwise, the following Spire Award winner has chosen to receive her award at her location of her choice, which is Wendy Webb. She's an analyst and a PC support with the IT department that works both at this location and the New Street Education Center. So congratulations and thank you to everybody. And we hope that nominations come in. We do give awards every month and love to hear about the great work going on in our board. So moving on, we have no delegations this evening, but we do have a presentation that was added, and that is the PAR update. Superintendent Blackwell, welcome to the hot seat. And welcome, Principal Daniel.
First of all, thanks to the board and
I was
Chair.
going to introduce you.
Okay.
Okay, I will introduce them. So thank you for having us this evening to talk about the PAR implementation update. What we will do for trustees is we will provide an opportunity to talk about Nelson first. And then if you have any questions for the Nelson-Bateman transition, you can ask Mr. Daniel, and then he'll leave, and then I will continue with just a couple more slides, okay? So it's my pleasure to introduce Paul Daniel, who's the principal at Nelson High School. Paul is going to share with us this evening many things that are happening between Nelson and Robert Bateman. Paul has worked very closely with Principal Dooley at Robert Bateman, so I will turn it over to Paul.
Just one request is that you really use the microphone because we have two trustees that are only able to listen through that.
Okay, first of all, thank you again for the invitation to come and speak to the group tonight. I also want to thank the opportunity. The senior admin team, I thought it would be best in my interest to come to Nelson a year and a half ago. Excited at the challenge to work through an amalgamation. And up until this point, I'm still very excited to work through that. Lots of challenges, lots of exciting things. But most of all, for me, lots of learning. Great opportunity to work with two superintendents. Although here at Nelson, different than time spent at Georgetown, lots of people coming in to visit and seeing what's happening with all the construction. So great opportunity to see lots of people, but certainly Rob and Terry have been very helpful in my learning. And most importantly, I've had a wonderful experience working quite closely with Mark Dooley, principal of Bateman, who's going through a very different challenge as he's working through a closure of a school, but we meet weekly, we have great meetings, we share good interests, and I think from that point forward, we're really working well, building and creating relationships with the new school environment that will be at Nelson. I guess the other shout out should be to another colleague, Claire Ailey, who took on a similar challenge just prior to me, and she's pretty much wrote a playbook for how this would happen when you're working through amalgamation, and had a lot of success with the MMR Pearson piece, and we're using that along with a lot of very specific things that are needed and required when we put two schools unique as Nelson and Bateman together, but certainly that's been also a very helpful resource. There's a couple of slides that you can, that I'll talk through, but certainly just an update about things that are happening in our schools. As we work through some of the challenges and certainly through some of the new introductions, up until this point, I've spent many visits, many opportunities learning and getting to know students at Robert Bateman. There's been a number of visits informally, but we also just recently ran some formal town hall visits with the grade 10, 11, and 12, or grade 10, 11 students that are going to be joining us next year. We've had a great success. Nelson grew by over 110 students because we obviously took on the grade 9 students from Robert Bateman in that full catchment changeover. That through link crew initiatives and lots of welcoming events that have happened at our school, we've seen a really easy transition for those grade 9s. And probably the most rewarding visit that I had was to spend an hour or so in the afternoon with the CPP program at Robert Bateman, and an opportunity to get to meet staff and most importantly the students from that school, and first introduction and getting to know them as we work through some of their transition concerns, challenges, and moving ahead. Just to fill you in on some of the stuff that's happened recently, we've had a number of successful joint PA ventures, not only, and this isn't just a 2-school opportunity, obviously a 3-school challenge with some changes happening at Burlington Central as well. But most recently, Robert Bateman and Nelson staff have been together 2 times in the fall, really constructive joint venture out to see some college learning at Mohawk College, and good opportunity for some sharing in the afternoon departmentally as we look to see what is needed, transition, and moving forward for the future. Nelson is spending a lot of time purging. You can imagine a building of that vintage would carry and collect a lot of equipment, supplies, and things that are a little antiquated, film strip machines and old record players, things that maybe Mr. Miller would be familiar with. But good opportunity for us to purge, make some changes, as well as Robert Bateman's getting some opportunities to work through that. So we've been sharing the idea of what we have in far as resources are concerned and trying to come up with a list of what we need at the new school. The staff have been great in many ways in trying to work collaboratively together, trying to come up with solutions to problems. And that was the first thing that Mark and I said to both staff and students. In the end, we're going to have a school under the hashtag Better Together, and we're really going to get there by listening to what your needs are, what the student needs are, so that we can present and make things work for starting in next year. There's one of 2 newsletters that have gone out to our community, along with a number of construction updates. We use that Center Mail quite regularly. And our parents are, we hope, well informed and understand what the changes are as we go through some construction pieces, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I came from a meeting earlier this evening. We had student council representatives from all 3 schools, and we're attempting a unique thing, a 3-school semi-formal. So we'll keep our fingers crossed as how we'll work together and make that happen. Holiday Inn off-site, February 13th. The kids are really excited. The administrators are a little nervous, but we're confident that it's going to be a success, and the worry is we're going to sell out. But that's a good worry to have, I think, moving forward.
Superintendent Blackwell has offered to supervise at the event.
Yes, ETOF as well, I understand. Thank you. One of the big challenges, if you can imagine putting two schools together, is making sure that we're offering the same courses in both schools that were offered previous years. And our guidance departments have been working from both schools collectively to create a framework for choice and options for kids. And we'll be working hard with our students to make sure we provide as much information as possible. Our plan this year is not to take anything off the table, to try to build what both schools have, provide what we can for students to choose, and then let them decide what programs will be offered in the following year. That means a return visit for me for another town hall. I've set that up in early February to try to explain how that's going to work, and then to work through some presentations, PowerPoints, and opportunities for kids to see what the options are going to be. Because there are some very new things that would be new to both schools, and we want to make sure that kids are exposed to those to make the right choices. A lot of the other unique things, we have a staff member who's putting together a club and carousel activity. We know how important it is to have extracurriculars provided and to keep kids engaged in learning. So there's some unique things at both schools. And again, in February, we're hoping to put together a large carousel with student representation of what those things are, have the Bateman students come over and have a look at those opportunities so they can start thinking ahead about what they have to provide, as well as the Bateman students showing us the wonderful things that they have going on that we want to make sure we carry on next year. So good things to look forward to. We've had a few things that have come up and we've had to work at to make changes. Obviously, I guess the first thing to speak to is a meeting earlier today at Admin Council about our restructuring of our department heads. So making sure we've got our leadership team in place for next year. Amalgamating two schools of teams can be challenging, but we work through a process. It was passed today at Admin Council. We'll start that interviewing process in February. Looking forward to that and the learning there. We also, it was announced, I believe, at the board meeting in November that Steve Sampson, who is a vice principal at Robert Bateman, and now we know that he'll be joining us for September at Nelson, and we're excited about that. I've already started to delegate some responsibilities to him, like creating a timetable and working with me as we work together some of the student voice and culture committees that have been formed. And just recently, myself and the two department heads have been sort of scratching our heads to try to recreate what a MTI lab would look like. And it's a fascinating name for a multi-purpose technology innovation lab. And if you can remember that, you get the credit. No, I'm just kidding. But, it's a challenge to the space, and we're looking forward to creating something there. I'm sure everybody's interested in finding out construction and updates of what's happening. Very busy over the holiday. The photograph on your left is what's left of our old library. So they got into the building. We were able to free up that space to the construction company a week before the holidays. They did a bunch of preliminary work of moving furniture and supplies and resources out of there. They've already started all the trenching for sewers and underground stuff. I sat in on a construction meeting yesterday, and they're talking about bricklayers coming in and putting block walls in and working through some of that interior space in the next couple of weeks. So that's exciting news to think that we're well into the rebuilding phases for construction. And the other space there is a food school that will tie into our new cafeteria. And I know they're planning and working forward to get that up and running as soon as possible. Just having construction workers on site is a welcome piece in our building. At the same time, we work with daily challenges trying to make sure we can run a school at the same time as work through construction. our community. Our students have been fantastic in responding to some of the spaces that we have left to provide the quality education that our kids so deserve. So the new picture there on the left is our temporary library. I took that picture this morning around 10 o'clock. That's sort of halfway through period 2, and you can see that although it's not as large as our library, we moved a number of familiar items there for our students, and it's very well subscribed. It seems to be that busy 5 periods a day, and certainly in our lunch hour spaces, it's packed, as well as some other lunch hour space that we have provided for students. So they have transitioned, they're making it work, and I believe we're going to be fine as we work through the construction part in second semester. I think I've done most of the talking that in my presentation. One other piece, the committee work. And before I pass it over to Terry, our amalgamation committee has been up and running. We've had a couple of meetings already. One of the things that I was working with was creating 2 different committees for student voice, and it was decided to add another committee about culture. One of the things the committee decided and recognized was that both schools bring a very different culture, different flavor to the forefront. And the members themselves, when we did a bit of a jot, came up with the idea that perhaps Nelson, if you had to put one word to that, it would be spirit. And if you had one word to put to Robert Bateman, it would be family. And that just resonated with me in a big way, because those are 2 wonderful words that would subscribe and describe both of those locations. And so the challenge now is how we can put those 2 things together. And that's where sort of the gist of the culture committee. So looking at some of the real neat things that each school does that represents their building, and trying to find a way to put those 2 things together and make sure that we bring the best out of both, and we create that environment next year. #BetterTogether. So those committees have been selected. From my point of view, that's student, staff, parent representation, and we're hoping to have one meeting, first get-to-know-you meeting just prior to exams. A lot of the work for these committees will go into second semester, but I think the most important work with these committees, and as we've gone through the selection process, is that they're going to be with us and up and running all through next year, because it's getting the feedback from our students, getting the on-the-ground intel as to what we need to do differently, what we can do better in order to make sure we serve all of our students in all levels of learning. So now I've come to a conclusion of my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions, or do you want to add one thing?
I'd just like to add, in terms of the other committees that you see up there, Mr. Dooley, Mark Dooley from Robert Bateman, the principal, is going to be running Artifacts and Memorabilia Committee and a Closing Celebrations Committee for Bateman. It's very specific to the school and that school community. We had an opportunity to look for interest in those committees prior to the break. The committees have been formed. It was an online expression of interest, very similar to the process that was done with the Pearson process. And both of those subcommittees are meeting tomorrow, so they'll have some updates to share with us after that first meeting, and trustees will be informed as to the dates around some of those closing celebrations. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to trustees to ask questions, if you have any, for Mr. Daigneault.
Trustee Collard.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. My question is about the outdoor learning area. There has been some concern expressed by some members of the community that the area may not be making them feel all that safe about the students using the area. And I was wondering if there had been any plans to make any modifications.
Through the chair to Trustee Collard, that's actually in some of the pictures that you saw around the construction, and I know Trustee Collard, you may not have them visible in front of you. There was a lot of pictures around the interior space. People will notice that there will be additional work on the exterior coming very soon with the back of the school, but also the front of the school. The phase 1 of the outdoor learning space has now been completed. Prior to the Christmas break, there was input collected at SEAC, and there are also other pieces of input in developing the rest of that space. So there's still phase 2 to be created, developed, and it will be shared back in another PAR update.
Director
Thank
Miller?
Through you, Chair Gravens, to Trustee Collard and all trustees. I met with a parent yesterday from CPP in Bateman, and it was a very productive and fruitful meeting. As a result of that, I will be meeting with Superintendents Blackwell and Zonnefeld and various other people just to discuss some of the things that she had brought up with me. And I would get back to her at some point once we did that. So thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. I guess my question is for you both. I know that we had an integration meeting planned for tomorrow that had to be canceled. So my question is with the action that's going on right now, how will that impact the moving forward of the subcommittees and committees? Don't know who it's for.
Yeah, it's for both of us. Yes, that wasn't an easy decision for us to make, but I do know I had staff at my building come up and say that's going to be difficult for them to make the meeting. And then once it was postponed, that same group of staff came up and said, thank you for the consideration and keeping us in the loop and making the decision to postpone it, because we really want to be part of this team and we don't want to go on to go on too far without us. With that in mind, I think we might have to become creative as how we're going to be able to gather, and if this interruption continues where we're going to need time. I think we have some time right now. We've got a couple more meetings scheduled, and if we move this one back a little bit, so be it. We'll be okay, but eventually we might have to come up with some creative ways to get around that, because I really do think the input from everybody on that committee is important. But that's a good question. Thank you. Anything else?
Through the chair to Trustee Shuttleworth, the committees that you see up there, two of the committees, Mr. Daniel or Paul shared that they involve students, and they will be running during the day, during school time. So there will be work already started on the Culture Committee and the Student Voice Committee, and as I shared a little bit earlier, the other two committees are actually meeting, subcommittees are meeting tomorrow night at Bateman. So that work will continue, and that work has been driven by the Integration Committee. So we're following the work of the Integration Committee.
Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. Through the chair to Principal Daniel. Thank you for coming tonight and sharing a snapshot of all the work that you're doing to seek a good transition for our students and all the collaborative activities that you're doing. I just thought I'd share something I learned. I had recently been to Robert Bateman School and attended the holiday sale. And I just wanted to bring something forward that perhaps you could bring to one of the integration committees. I have attended that holiday sale for many, many years and ran into about 3 other community members who actually asked me about whether there was any thought to whether this community sale has saw its last day. And so I thought I would just bring it forward. That perhaps you can bring it to one of your integration committees, that there were a lot of community members who attend and support our school because they want to support our students. And they're looking to see whether those great things that came out of Robert Bateman will continue, those traditions.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I too attended the sale, spent way more money than I had expected, but it was great to see the energy from the students involved, certainly. And I heard that same message. We have every reason to think that we can continue that on. In a rebirth in a new location, there'll be challenges. It might not be as large and as awesome as it is now, but when you start something new and different, it starts and it builds and it grows, but it'll be definitely student focused, and we want to make sure we keep those kids who need that experience and work towards that opportunity to involved, and the plan is to continue that on. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, there are no more questions for this portion of your presentation. Thank you very much.
So very quickly, some construction updates with MM Robinson. If you haven't had a chance to drive by lately, you'll see that the front of the school, the 3-story, 6-classroom addition, is almost ready. We're looking at the beginning of semester 2. And what you'll see in front of you are pictures of the cafeteria, one from the outside and one from the inside that were taken over the winter break. So there's been a little bit more done on that. But those spaces will be ready in the next couple of weeks. So that's really exciting. Wrong way. And then we also have Robert Bateman working with Burlington Central. And I'm not going to read everything to you. I'm sure you can read on the slide. We'll have Principal Lemaire and the IB coordinator, Jennifer Bright, who is shared between Robert Bateman and Central, to share some updates at our next board meeting where we have a PAR update. But we do have meetings coming up. The students have come together a couple of times. Principal Lemaire has done the same thing as Principal Daniel. He's attended and has attended Robert Bateman and met with students at Robert Bateman. And application status, we'll have some updates when they come to us, but the grade 9 uptake again is looking very promising for this year for Burlington. And then finally, the ICM open house. It seems so long since that event, but it was not on the last update. So again, a huge success, over 1,100 attendees, and one of our most viewed live streams from the Halton District School Board that evening, and it is still posted for people that were not able to attend. The best part about the open house is last year, you may recall, we had a panel of people from post-secondary that were able to talk to the program development. This year we had kids that are in the program and staff that are working with the program, and they brought a lot of energy, and we actually had some nice spaces to share as well. Students attended McMaster University to follow up on some of the work they had done in the fall. And in the next couple of weeks in February, they are off to Mohawk College for a Hack student event all day. So they'll be working on some cybersecurity challenges and exciting events like that. And the applications. So one is a map and one is a table. As you can see, last year is the distribution of students that are actually attending in the first year of the program. And you'll see that we've got basically our entire board up there. This year, we had probably close to twice as many applicants as last year, and the data is up there. You'll see that there's a large number in the west, but if you look at the dots, there are, in the north area, there are 4 or 5 dots. There are a couple of schools there. I can't really see it from here. Last year, there are 24 this year. So obviously the word of mouth is spreading around the program. People are figuring out ways to get there and working together to get to the program. East, again, a large number of students that have applied. And which is exciting to us is that we have 22 applications of students that are not currently in the Halton District School Board, many of them coming from private school and putting faith into returning to the public system. So that's exciting. And that concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to take some questions. I guess
Director Miller?
Thank you, Chair Grabens and Superintendent Blackwell. I want to note that obviously the ICM program has been extremely successful and continues to be successful. And when you speak to when you visit the school and you speak to the students currently in there, they absolutely love it. So does the staff. And I believe, I haven't spoken to any parents, but I was there at that open house on November 12th, and it was just, I don't think I heard a negative word. It was all positive. But we're kind of the victim of our own success in that we're starting to draw students from we did draw some. We've drawn 37 from the east, and we've drawn 24 from the north, primarily Milton. So as a board, I think we're kind of at a decision point around what we do with this. I think those numbers would grow in other areas. We have an opportunity before us in that we have started construction on a new secondary school in Milton to be open for September 2021. The boundary for that school, the boundary process involving the Parents Boundary Review Committee, will be commencing shortly, a couple of weeks. Yeah, January 30th. And I know Trustee Jarrett's and Trustee Daniele will be involved with that, and it'll be chaired by Associate Director Bogue and co-chaired by Trustee Oliver. We will likely be bringing a report to the board at the next board meeting around what we believe will be significant for that school, and that's likely an ISTEM. It will be an information report because it's obviously operational, but to begin an ISTEM program at the new Milton Secondary School as commencing when it opens. We felt it was important that we bring it here, and if we finalize, it's not carved in stone yet, but when it comes to the board, you will see whether it is or it isn't, before the boundary review process begins. I think the parents that will, because it's going to be a rather large boundary review process, and those parents that are on it, I think it's fair and transparent for and to them that they know what our plans are. So I'll leave it at that. Associate Director Bogue or Superintendent Blackwell or Hunt Gibbons, do you have anything to add or no? I know I went off on a tangent a little bit, but I just saw an opportunity to see that when we're talking about ISTEM. And thank you.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
All right, thank you. Two questions. First of all, you have 126 applicants, which is double what you had last year. Is there a cap on the number of people you accept?
So actually, the 126 is not double. The total is double. So we have 113 students that are in the program this year, and we have over 200 applications. Okay. So there is not a cap this year. We will probably have double the cohort size that we had as last year. That being said, there will be students who do not meet the criteria for the ISTEM program, as there would be students in IB who may not meet the criteria. They may not have answered a question, or the alignment of the application didn't suit the program.
Okay, and my second question, which kind of comes from that. So the 22 non-Halton students, is that a revenue? Do we get revenue from that?
They would be our students. They would register with our board, and we would get, so they may live in Halton, but they are not attending a Halton school. Right? So they could live in Burlington, and they might be attending a private school. So
okay,
they would then be our public student, and they would be funded.
So then if there are any of the non-Halton students from outside the Halton region?
Yes. And yes, correct. Yes and yes, they would be funded.
Soon as they attend our schools, we get the funding for them, regardless of where they live. Because our funding is based on the numbers of students we have.
That kind of yes.
Yeah, not that I'm egocentric or anything. No, I'm way off on. So that's our funding is we, Superintendent Nagoya, and Executive Officer McFadden report to the ministry on who our students are and the numbers. We get money for them. So there's no one in this board that we would not be getting a GSN for.
Okay. I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, it's really exciting, all of the work that's going on for the transitions and incorporating student voice and so on. fantastic. And just to Director Miller's point about, you know, the success of the iSTEM and the opportunity for diffusing that model to alternate sites in the board with the new opportunity in Milton. And I just want to say that I think there's also opportunity in the Oakville area with the new school that is planned and or some of the other schools that may have space. And yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for our students of the future. I understand we only have capacity to do so much at a time, but it may almost be time to start looking ahead and putting together some kind of longer term plans such that we can attract even more students to have this wonderful opportunity.
Director Miller.
Through Chair Durant to Vice Chair Al Harrison, you make an excellent point, and I think it is, you know, we do have long-term planning in terms of this, but around program, we have not done so much of that. But it is time that we did sit down. But you raised a very good point. One of the things I said about Milton is it provides an opportunity because we're building a new school. So I'm going to look to Superintendent Puccetti to just comment on the ease with which it is to put these into a new school as opposed to retrofit a school. And we will have that opportunity in Oakville coming up sometime soon, I imagine. But
thank you. Through you, Director Miller. I think with a new school, the transition or the adoption of sort of iSTEM thinking is already there in terms of how the space in, for example, the new Southwest Milton School is designed with a lot of collaborative spaces and opportunities for breakout and self-directed teaching environments for the kids. So I think that's very, very well suited. And for the new Northeast Oakville High School, keep your fingers crossed, we'll hear about that very soon. That, you know, it's going to, we're going to be designing that school, and we can adopt a lot of those principles in there as long as we respect the ministry space template requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's lots of opportunity for that.
Go right ahead.
Right, and just briefly, I think that's all great, and that is part of, I think, our collective future, and hopefully some of that will come up through our multi-year planning process. And as we look again to the future, you know, there are other discussions to have about whether iSTEM becomes iSTEAM, for example, and so much more. So I'm looking forward to all of that.
Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. So first of all, I thank you to you and your staff for making good on a commitment on creating a program that parents and the community asked for. I'm delighted to see, it's really gratifying to see that there is growth and interest, and parents and students are choosing this program. I am also aware we had a report that came to our board in September that spoke to the impact that an increase in ICM students had on optional programs at the school, specifically French immersion. And we learned in September that there was a much smaller group of students choosing French immersion. And I'm wondering if there is an opportunity tonight, and I asked the director if you could just share about how this program is continually being monitored. I'm talking about French immersion, and whether there is potentially any impact from this activity. And I ask this because I know parents who contacted me in September when that first report came out. They were concerned. They were French immersion parents, and they were concerned whether French immersion could be cannibalized from ICM, meaning their students would select French immersion. So I'm sure there are parents who are still wondering what will happen if it's a small cohort.
Through you, Chair Durant, to Trustee Reynolds. A little bit of historical background as the trustees from the previous group are all aware of. We have French immersion in Burlington Central, and we have French immersion in Aldershot. both of them had relatively small programs. We tend to want about 2 classes of French immersion per grade so that it's sustainable. We had neither in Burlington Central nor Aldershot prior to the PAR. We had a single class in both of those, and both of them were relatively small classes as well. During the PAR process, one of the implications of the PAR was we said to the trustees that we would monitor the French immersion programs at both schools, and we would come back to the board with some reports. If you'll recall, in the LTAP, this topic came up very briefly in the LTAP, both last year and the previous year. I mean, we haven't had the LTAP this year, where we talked about the small classes of Aldershot and Burlington Central. Currently, there are 9 students in the French immersion program at Aldershot. And next year, we have, we believe, 7. So as trustees can see, those are pretty significantly low numbers. In particular, in light of the changes to possible class sizes that are being from the government, Ministry of Education, around the increase in class sizes, it's extremely difficult to run classes that small. And French immersion is difficult to run combined classes of, but even if we were to run, say we had the 7 next year and the 9 from this year, and we ran a combined class of 9, 10 French immersion, we still only have 16 students in there. So it is our intent that we will be bringing a report to the board at the next board meeting around conducting a boundary review using Pathway 2 for that French immersion program. And it's important that we do a boundary review because it is a program, and programs changed, and we're required to do that if a program changes. It would not be a long boundary review, and it's basically basically going to be a simple question that's answered. I will turn it over to Superintendent Blackwell and/or Superintendent Trufant to add any comments.
I would just like to add that it's a secondary French immersion boundary review at this point to look at the FI numbers there.
Last thing I would say is it's important that we do this and inform the community, particularly the parents of those 7 students, because they're selecting their courses for next year now. And, you know, we did say we'd monitor it. We have been monitoring it. And until we could get the numbers for this year, we couldn't really figure out what we were going to do. But now that we have them, and I would say it is your word about cannibalization. I don't know if I'd characterize it like that, but it certainly is as a result of ISTEM. I think many students are choosing to go into ISTEM as opposed to the French immersion program. So we need to act fairly quickly on this to be fair to those 7 students and grade 7s and 8s as well, but at least they've got another year, and then, or sorry, grade 6s and 7s, so that they know where they're going when they get into grade 8 next year or grade 7. So, okay.
You have a follow-up?
So I just wanted to reaffirm that there is a commitment to speak to those existing students who are looking at making decisions for next year. I would think that the parents would want to know, especially if they're finding out their peers are choosing ISTEM, they would, I think, they may not know if they haven't been talking. So I really appreciate, I'm sure they would really appreciate knowing that they could get, that someone could reach out to them and let them know, and to see if there's any accommodation that for them in terms of if they choose to leave French immersion, or if there's no French immersion, what other accommodations might we be considering for them?
It's an excellent point, and probably starting tomorrow, the principal of Aldershot will be phoning the parents of those students to give them a heads up, because ultimately, whether we conduct a boundary review is the purview of the trustees. It has to be, we would recommend it, but you have to approve it. So we cannot say definitely, but we want to give them a heads up because it's still 2 weeks away before the next board meeting. So the principal will be contacting those families in the next couple of days to let them know to pay attention because this might happen. Of course, the students will have the option to go to Burlington Central. And it has the added benefit of increasing the viability of the Burlington Central French Immersion Program. We always knew that there was going to be a challenge with two of them running in a not a very densely populated area and selections, but we made a commitment to try it. We've tried it, and we have to make a decision now.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much through the chair and to the director. I very much appreciate your comments tonight that we're sort of a victim of our own success and that this program has just taken off and it's grown in a way with interest that I don't think is adequately or appropriate, not appropriately, but maybe shown on the data that we have here. If there was, I think that there'd be so much interest in the North, and I'm so pleased to hear that there might be a chance to have at least this program get as far up as Milton. I think the 24 that you see in the North could be probably 3 or 4 times that time it comes up. And with the Vision Georgetown project underway within the next 5 to 10 years with the added schools being involved there, it just bodes well for the future of this. But I think it speaks to the shift in the interest of our students as we talk about French immersion and the change there and going into the iSTEAM perhaps in the future. I think it just is our board responding to the learning needs of our current students. And I applaud the efforts of everyone involved in the program and the growth and the growing of that program over this year and in the future. Thank you.
Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, this kind of builds on Trustee Gray's comments. I forgot to ask this last time, and with the new cohort of applicants to iSTEAM, is there still, how diverse is the group? I'm thinking of, are we still an accessible program to students of all learning styles and needs? Like, I don't know if you can answer that. I see we have some geographic diversity, which is great, but I think back to the origins, and part of that was creating an accessible and open and diverse community.
Through the chair to Trustee Harrison, I don't have the specifics on this year's applications. They've just come in the Friday before the winter break. But the program last year, we did have applicants select either applied or academic pathway. We did not have enough students to run an applied pathway section. That being said, we encourage those students to stay in the program and engage in the learning, and they are. So it's a 4-credit package in grade 9 that consists of science, math, design tech, or tech design, sorry, and geography. The other courses they have the opportunity to take at multiple levels that are their electives. We're seeing great success with that, and kids are seeing success in themselves as well, so they're working together on that. This year, the program is not being offered at level. It will be offered at the same academic level, but that is not a requirement in terms of, the marks are not a requirement in getting into the program. It's the type of learner and the ability to work in groups and some of their learning skills that make them ready to learn that way. And some of the kids are really outshining what they may have done in a stream classroom.
Okay, there's no other speakers on the speakers list, but I have questions. So I have been lucky enough to going to Robinson, or back to the topic of Robinson. I've been lucky enough to go see the cafeteria. It does look gorgeous, and I'm very excited about the hospitality kitchen going in as well. I am wondering sort of what's happening with regards to what seems to be the missing windows at the front of and I was wondering about timelines for that.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Gerbens. Yes, there has been a little bit of a delay in the delivery of windows. We're actually experiencing that at a few other sites. I think the recent update is that they should be coming in the next week or so, but I can provide you with a little bit of further update if I check back with staff.
Okay, thank you. And with regards to the ISTEM, seeing 24 people willing to make the trek down where there's basically there's no transportation that we provide, but not even, at least from Oakville, there's a GO line. There is nothing going from the north to Aldershot, and 24 people are able to believe that they can make that work. And so I think that opening up a program up there, it'll be full immediately, because if there's that many people willing to make that trek now without any support, I'm sure that there's 100 more people that are willing to do it if it's right in their neighborhood or close by. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. And just my last comment, and this is actually to Kevin Raposo, and that is that he's our IT person who runs this. This is this is a topic that is in this presentation will be of interest to a lot of people. And I was just wondering if you can send out a notice when this particular live stream actually goes onto YouTube from like after the live stream is done and it's reposted. If you could let us know when that's available, that would be great. Well, if the presentation itself, including the whole thing, Nelson all the way to the end, could be isolated, that would be fantastic, because then we can send it out to the communities.
Just a follow up to the chair of the board and the rest of the trustees, to Kevin. Kevin posts the live stream immediately once the meeting's over. It's live. It's already on our YouTube channel, and the link is on our page, so it's immediate. Right, Kevin? Yeah. But if you're asking to isolate cutting video, that's a different thing. Like that will take some video editing. So I would rather the video to be live right away, and then parents can get to the video right away. But if Kevin has to do some slicing and dicing, that's going to take time.
Okay, so we'll just get the link out there as soon as possible tonight. That's fine. I just haven't noticed it necessarily being immediately there. No, just for the trustees can get it out to our communities, that's all. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there are no more speakers on the speakers list. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I'm sure there will be a lot of people interested in where everything stands at this point across all the schools. So, okay. So now we are up to the consent agenda items. So I'm going to put the motion on the floor. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the consent agenda action items and receive the information items for January 8, 2020. Moved by Trustee Shuttleworth, seconded by Trustee Rocha. Thank you. Are there any items that people would like to discuss from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now we are up to ratification action items. We didn't actually have any items it's not listed in our in our agenda this evening. We don't have any action items from private session. But for action this evening, as we have 2 action items, I'd like to draw your attention to the first item, which is number 411, Audit Committee Professional Development, Report 20001. on page 21 of your board package. Trustee Reynolds, would you like to speak to this? Thank you.
Thank you. To my fellow trustees, this request is following our trustee expense policy protocol, specifically reflects section 4.11. To clarify, this section specifies that board approval is required in order for this professional development opportunity be paid for by the leadership account, as this particular training is specific to serving on the audit committee. I wanted to just share with you that I successfully completed the course. It was immensely informative and certainly will help guide my membership on this committee. And to just give you a snapshot of how valuable it was, if I was a chartered professional accountant, I would have earned 4 hours towards my accreditation to maintaining an accounting profession. Not being an accountant, I did really appreciate the learning, and I feel actually for any future individuals who are interested in serving in an audit committee, it was very, very welcome. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, so I assume you're going to move this motion. Can I have a seconder, please? Trustee Daniele, thank you. Okay, and now, is there any debate at all? Or any questions for Trustee Reynolds? Oh, I do have one. Okay. Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. I just want to say that I was happy to second this and happy to support it anytime that we are looking at improving our skills, especially in ways that will be a benefit of this board. I think is something to be applauded, and I'm really glad that you did bring this, and it will be getting my support.
Excellent. Well, there's no other speakers on the list. So all those in favor. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item is on page 22. It's the Striking Committee Report 20002, submitted by myself and Vice Chair Harrison. Before we speak to it, can I get a mover, please? Trustee Gray, seconded by Trustee Oliver. Okay. Are there any speakers to this at all? Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. I noticed that on the description of the different committees, and my pages may not be aligned with anyone else's, but currently the document that I'm looking at has it as page 27. Maybe it's 32 on yours, but there is a description of the Halton Learning Foundation as one of the committees of this, and is that not required anymore?
No, we didn't set a position for Halton Learning Foundation, so that shouldn't be on the list.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So is that just a housekeeping then that we could see that? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, comments? All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're up to communications to the board. First off, we have the student trustee report. Trustee Lau and Trustee Burns, do you have a report for us this evening? Excellent, go right ahead.
Quite literally and figuratively. Now it's on for some reason. That's lovely. All right. Oh, it's all right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Trustee Lau and I hope that all of you have had a wonderful holiday break. Coming up for Trustee Lau and I is the next major conference with the Ontario Student Trustees Association in Ottawa, known as the Board Council Breakouts, where Trustee Lau and I will spend 3 days speaking with and learning from our fellow student trustees across the Golden Horseshoe region and Ontario as a whole. At this conference, Trustee Lau and I will not only plan on representing Halton with the respect that it deserves, but we are also going to speak with other student trustees to hear about student initiatives that are being started in other school boards, looking to hear about what Trustee Lau and I can do to improve our performance in representing Halton's exceptional student body. Shortly before the break began, I also had the opportunity to attend Trustee Oliver's Super Council meeting at Abbey Park Secondary School. I was more than happy to learn that the representatives at this meeting were extremely interested in the process of becoming a student senator and a student trustee, and the current initiatives that Trustee Lau and I are pursuing along with our Senate. Trustee Lau and I would like to thank Trustee Oliver for this opportunity to reach out to parents in our community, and we continue to invite any other interested trustees to contact us should you want us to speak at future Super Council meetings. Now, I'll pass it off to Trustee Lau for some positive updates on one of our goals this year of increased student engagement, as well as some updates on our yearly plans.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Trustee Burns. Before I begin with our future plans, I'd like to report to the board that our Student Senate Instagram page has officially hit 1,000 followers as of today. Yes. Which is more than 5 times the follower count from last year. So we're very glad to see that many HDSB students are interacting with our Senate, and they're giving their opinions on matters that they're passionate about. They're getting involved with our surveys, and they're even inquiring about becoming senators for next year. So now I'll touch upon some of our upcoming goals for this new year. To give a brief overview, our Senate is very eager to explore new initiatives such as amping up our external communications and exposing the Senate to the entire student population, possibly re-exploring the possibility of a Northern Forum, and expanding our Senate's volunteer hub to Oakville, Milton, and Halton Hills. We hope to update trustees about these initiatives later on in the year as we work on accomplishing our goal of improving student representation and involvement across the HDSB. On the topic of student involvement, for our next Student Senate meeting on January 21st, our senators will start working with their groups for the HYLS workshop planning, and we're excited to see what all of our student leaders come up with. Trustee Burns and I are now open to questions. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just wanted to express my excitement at being the new student trustee mentor, and I'm really looking forward to working with both of you, Trustee Lau and Burns. Thank you.
Well, there are no other speakers on the speakers list. It was an excellent, enthusiastic first report of the new decade. Thank you very much. And so now we're moving on to action items for this evening. Sometimes we have items that meet certain established criteria to come to the board table twice before voting. We don't have any action items that meet the criteria, but never fear, there will be action items in 2 weeks. Okay, we have one information item for this evening, and that is number 531, Outdoor Environmental Education Program Update, report number 20003. Welcome, Associate Director Bogue, Superintendent Salmani, and Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons. Please speak directly into the microphone for those on the call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the board, it's my pleasure to chat with you about this report. I'm with my friends here, Superintendent Salmani and Hunt-Gibbons, because this was a group effort. I would like to acknowledge the principal of Gary Allen High School, Andrea Taylor, as well. Andrea, Julie, Tina, and myself, as well as the director, have met several times starting last June to formulate some ideas around what you are reading in the report. So this report outlines some opportunities for outdoor and environmental learning for our kids. To take you back to last June, at the time where we made a decision to discontinue the Briny Creek project, the director made a commitment that we would continue to look at opportunities for kids to get outside and to learn about the environment. And in fact, one of the things that we talked about was that with the Briny Creek project, there was a relatively small number of students impacted. So our thinking is that as we move forward, and this is a bit of a starting point, that we want to look at opportunities to impact as large a number of kids as we can. And certainly in this time of climate change and those kinds of things, we recognize the importance. So we wanted to share this new initiative with you, and also in the report, we wanted to share some things that have been happening and will continue to happen in our school as well. in terms of outdoor and environmental education. So just to highlight very quickly for you the new program, the concept is a little bit of a rebranding of a previous concept. In the past, you may have heard of a program called Earth Keepers or Project Wild. These were offered through Brownie Creek. And so this will be a different version of that. Some of the essential elements from those two programs will be incorporated into this new program. And essentially, this is an opportunity for grade 5 kids to spend some time outdoors and learning about the environment. It might happen in their own schoolyard, or it might happen in a local green space at a park, a conservation area, provincial park. We're still working on some details, but we're looking at some flexibility there, and the program will be facilitated by an outdoor educator expert and high school students on a co-op placement. And so our co-op kids will be trained by this outdoor ed expert, and the co-op students will be facilitating the learning of the grade 5 students. So we've got kids learning from kids, and we think that's a really powerful model. We think we've got a number of things outlined in the report here for you to demonstrate the Halton District School Board's commitment around environmental education, and we'd be happy to answer questions that you might have.
Your report seems to be very thorough, as there are no questions. Of course you can make a comment.
Through you, chaired events to all trustees. As we all are aware, it was rather contentious, the cancellation of the Bronte Creek project, our program last year. And as Associate Director Bowe mentioned that we made a commitment as a board to continue, and we made that commitment actually prior to canceling that program, that we believe strongly in environmental education and kids getting out and learn. And so consequently, we made that commitment to come back and take a look at it. And I want to applaud the work led by Associate Director Bowe, but also Superintendent Solmini and Hunt Gibbons and Principal Andrea Taylor, who did a lot of the running around and the groundwork on this. Just so if you'll recall, we had several delegations around the Bronte Creek program. One of those, I'm not going to mention the names, but one of those people who delegated has seen this and has been very supportive of what we're putting on the table here. So that's, I think that's just information that trustees would like to have heard. So.
Your comments has sparked someone to go on to the list. So, Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, I was just wondering, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for the new staff person and the student leaders to shape what this is going to look like. So I wonder whether, and this is happening in the next term starting in February, so I wonder if near the end of the school year, whether it would be possible to hear from yourselves and or some of those student leaders about their reflections on how it went and how the program may continue to evolve over the coming years.
Through the chair to all of the trustees, we would be delighted to do that, to bring students in as well as our newly hired interpretive naturalist and share with you just what the semester has brought.
Excellent. Well, there are no more speakers on the speakers list. So thank you very much for your excellent report, and we look forward to getting the update later this year. Okay, so we are up to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of, one thing in particular, and I look for direction from my colleagues. So previously we had a motion to authorize spending for DISC training for trustees. And at the last committee of the whole meeting, it was the will of the group to go on to phase 2 and do some additional research and learning about our collaborative processes for the coming term. And so I circulated to everybody a quote for that work. It was $2,250 exclusive of taxes. And so I just wonder whether if it's the will of the group to then proceed now that you know the cost. And if so, I will give notice of motion to bring that motion to the next meeting. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, thank you.
Trustee Daniele.
Thank you very much. In discussion with student trustees Burns and Lau, they've just asked me to remind trustees we mentioned a notice of motion at the December meeting, but we will be putting in a report from the student trustees and the student trustee mentors to do a slight change to the student election policy in the next board package. Due to legislative changes, the election has to move from May to February, and that would be the only change.
Okay. So next, we're up to the director's report.
Chair Drabents, I have a few items here. The first one, I'm going to ask Superintendent Ngoy to help out with it. As you are fully aware, and everybody's aware, we have an audit committee, and as a result of a risk identified by audit, we were in touch with legal counsel to review, revise our policy, and admin procedure regarding third-party agreements, MOUs and agreements. Policies are the purview of trustees, but many of our policies are being looked at and written by our legal counsel, and so we felt that it was important to bring this to your attention. Superintendent Ngoy, anything to add?
Certainly. As we're looking at the partnerships and sponsorship agreements of the board, we currently have an administrative procedure that is being reviewed, and with that, it will be there will be an associated policy for third-party agreements, just to include all agreements, regardless of what form they may take. And the procedure as well accompanying the policy will have the details. And that will come to the trustees for input and approval in the next month or two.
We had asked all trustees to put May 7th into their calendar, because that's Student Excellence Evening. We're now asking you to scrub that out and put in May 14th. The reason is because in our calendar we have 12 days of particular significance. And fortunately, we have taught it on time, thanks to Superintendent Etoff and his department. May 7th is one of those particular days of significance. It's Vesik, the day of the full moon in the month of May, and it's the recognition of the Buddha's birthday, formalized as a day of celebration in 1950 for the World Fellowship of Buddhists. It's usually the 7th day of the 4th month of the Tibetan calendar. So it would not be appropriate for us to have a celebration on that evening. So if you can, and we will put if we've already done it, we may have already done it, messaging out to schools and so on, so that they're aware of it. We had a United Way challenge going on in the board, and one of the prizes for that, or one of the incentives, I don't know if it's so much an incentive, but booby prize perhaps, was that I would do their job for half a day. We, as a result, I don't know as a result of that, but it's the highest amount of money that we have raised as a board for the United Way. We raised $58,000 through payroll deductions and donations, exceeding the goal set for this year. And the lucky winner that I will be going to work for is Jeremy Hodgson, a business teacher at Garth Webb Secondary School. So Jeremy will be providing me the curriculum, those poor kids, and the poor teacher, because they'll have to reteach them after I've been with them for a day or so. So that'll be sometime in semester 2. And I want to thank Marnie Denton and Andrea Taylor again for leading that United Way fundraising drive. So I can assure Trustee Daniele there's far more than a union issue with me going in to teach a class. The last thing I want to talk about, I'm sure all trustees are aware of, and the entire community is aware of the current challenges with collective bargaining and labor negotiations, and sanctions that have been placed upon the board by particular unions. Rightfully, it's their right, it's collective bargaining, and they're entitled to do so, and we respect that. One of those sanctions by OSSTF is to not administer the EQAO grade 9 math test, any EQAO test for that matter. But the most urgent one is the grade 9 math test, because it's in some of our schools, it was scheduled for next week, and in all of our schools, it was scheduled within the next 2 weeks. And today, the Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce, announced that all boards will be allowed or be permitted to make board-by-board decisions on whether to proceed with the EQAO grade 9 test. We had already started some contingency work, and under the direction of Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons, our schools had been directed to already develop alternatives to some of the EQAO work. In our board, the EQAO grade 9 test, we also include the results of that to up to 15% of a grade 9 student's math mark. Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons had directed principals and department heads to develop alternatives to that 15%, so that would not have been an issue whether we were writing the EQAO test or not. But given the minister's comments today that it's a board-by-board decision, we were quite anxious about it, but in particular our schools were very anxious about it. There's a tremendous amount of preparatory work for school administrators to do, and of course teachers supervise all that work and supervise the test. In one of our schools, for example, we have over 250 grade 9 students. How could we have possibly had vice principals or principals supervise that exam? How could they administer a grade 9 EQAO exam? So as a result of that, we have made the decision that we will not be conducting the grade 9 EQAO math test in January. And I guess I'll leave it at that. I would say that I have had lots of conversations with directors of our surrounding boards. I won't mention them, but they've made the same decision as us. So, and I'll leave it open for questions now. Unless you have anything to add, Julie? Okay.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, and through the chair to Director Miller. Given that the minister has announced that it's a board-by-board decision, and that given that we have now just heard from you that we will be canceling the January running of the grade 9 math, what is the plan for those students? Will they be writing that test? Is the plan to have those students write that test later? Is there an indication that that's the expectation from the ministry at this point? Or is the ministry allowing each board to make that decision on a board-by-board basis?
Through you, Chair Drabens, to Trustee Gray, I will start the question with what the minister has said, and then I will turn it over to Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons to talk about the difficulty of having students write a test in June that they have not had math in for several months. But the minister also announced that these students in January would be writing this test in June. I think that would be a challenge for those students. And it would also be a challenge for our schools, because now you're doubling the number of kids that you have to supervise and all those other things. I'm not, at this point, I think it's still a fairly fluid situation. I don't think parents or students should be in semester 1 who are scheduled to write the January exam should be concerned or anxious about writing it in June, because I think it is still a fluid situation. There will be some challenges. There'll be more information, I'm sure, presented to the minister and the ministry. The unions may also have, OSSTF may also have a position on that as well, because that work is struck now. And does that mean they make up struck work sometime in June? In the past, federations have declined to do so. So I think there's a real fluidity to that, and I think we're making a decision on the now, and we'll worry about the future as we go forward. The last thing I would say about it is the EQAO is used as a benchmark for the province and the results are recorded publicly, and they're used, and we use them in our board as well for our multi-year plan. The validity of an exam where all students are written when approximately half the students would not have had math for 4 or 5 months would be questionable, I guess. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons to talk about the challenge about.
Certainly. Through the chair to all of the trustees, not having the students write at this point, certainly from a logistics point of view and from an accommodations point of view, because it's not just a matter of writing a test, it's all of the accommodations that go into supporting students who are entitled to accommodations while they write, whether that be scribes or Google Read and Write or electronic versions of the test. So there's a whole lot of logistics issues. Our decision as a board not to have EQAO as part of the final, not all boards have EQAO as part of their final. We do that to reduce the number of stresses and examinations for students, because we have both a performance task for 15% and the final evaluation, the examination for 15%. And so rather than have our students then also do EQAO on top of that, because the EQAO assessment is in of itself the curriculum, using that made sense to minimize student stress, but at the same time also provide a good demonstration of their mastery of the curriculum. And so we just happened this week to say we couldn't wait any longer to be able to say whether this would clear up, and we could do that, and we instructed teachers to please write alternatives. The decision that we not try to do the test, and what will come about, our student trustees can rest assured to their peers when they go back to schools that it's still way too early to start talking and start what-ifing about what we do in June, because there's too much going on right now, and there's too many things that are still fluid and that can still change. But rest assured that regardless of what the position is at the time when everything settles, we will make sure that any students who are writing are prepared in the best way possible to do what it is that they need to do. And we will make sure that the families and the students are communicated with so that they understand what is happening. But at this point, to go back and to say to students, what is happening in June, it's all just too very new and too fresh and too unsettled at this point.
Okay, Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm not sure, this might be directly to Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons or it might be to the director. So exam schedules for high schools are January 23rd to the 29th. EQAO tests were supposed to take place next week. Now, even though they're not taking the EQAO test, will the math exam that is in its place be, so for example at Nelson on the 15th and 16th of January, or when the EQAO was scheduled, or will it be during the scheduled exam time for the students? I thought it would be for you.
So just backing up to the start of that. So EQAO allows a window, which has always fallen over class time and the final examination time. And this year their window is the 13th to the 24th. So again, it did fall over that piece. And here in Halton, we have a 1 exam a day approach to finals. Not all boards do, but that's how we do it. In attempts to minimize conflicts and student stress. So now that we know that EQAO is not occurring, but that students are writing an alternative assessment, they're working on their performance tasks and that assessment, and we'll be communicating with through the schools as to which they will be doing on what day. So if they had been moving forward with EQAO, they would have had a hole in their final evaluation day because they would have already completed that. Let's say if they had a period 2 math class. Now they have an option and the ability, depending when they had timetabled within that window of the 13th to the 24th. So some schools were as early as the 13th. We did have one school that was scheduled on that date, and we did have schools as late as the 20th. And so the schools will be communicating to students to ensure that everyone is aware of the dates so that everyone knows where they need to show up. Students don't need to stress that they're being asked to prepare for something different than that which they have been prepared for, because EQAO is a measure and a reflection of that curriculum. So whether they're studying for a test that their classroom teacher wrote or the questions that came off of the EQAO assessment, they are one and the same in that they reflect the mathematics curriculum for grade 9. And so there will be some local decisions and some slight variances from one place to another, but all grade 9 students in both applied and academic will be completing their final 30%, which consists of a 15% performance task, which is already scheduled and students are aware of what it is, as well as a 15% final examination, which this year the teachers are writing for their students.
Okay. Do you have any?
Just so trustees are aware, we will be communicating this with our secondary principals this evening, and probably tomorrow, I can't say for definite, but tomorrow we'll be communicating with families and all students.
Okay. I have just a question that I should probably know, being a parent of a high school student. Is the EQAO a requirement to graduate?
Through your chair of events to all trustees, no, it is not a requirement to graduate.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just add, it's the literacy test that is scheduled for March 31st, which is a requirement of graduation.
Okay. So hopefully everything will be all nice and smooth for March 31st.
That's not going.
Okay, wonderful. Let's think positive thoughts. Okay, so you're done your director's report then?
I am, thank you.
Okay, so communications from the chair. Just to let you all know that I represented the board at the City of Burlington Council meeting to delegate with regards to municipal transit. Trustee Shuttleworth was also there, along with her family, which was lovely. And there was another delegation, and Trustee Reynolds was there as well. And actually, the chair of the Halton Catholic District School Board was there. And there was a teacher from Burlington Central that also delegated on municipal transit and how it would potentially tie into work that happens at the school and from a teacher's perspective on how it would benefit students. And there were students, high school students, also in the gallery. The response from the council was mostly positive, and I look forward to next steps. So otherwise, that's all I have for my communications from the chair. So committee reports. Are there any committee reports this evening? Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. So this is perhaps an end of committee report. As we have reshuffled our portfolios and our committee assignments, Trustee Gray and myself are leaving Inspire Awards, but we have a little bit of housekeeping to do, and we're just wondering if we could ask all trustees. I will send out a link to make sure you update whether you have given out your Inspire Award, where it's been given, if it's actually been completed, so that we can hand off our documents, and then our two new colleagues will start off well. The other thing is, no, that's actually it. Thank you. Sorry, I just remembered. The other thing would be a reminder that we have audit committee scheduled for February the 11th. I know that's time away, but if you'll put that in your calendar from 2 to 5 p.m. if you can join us. Thanks.
Okay, and just a reminder that the striking committee report that we passed today, we will any committees that are staff-driven, the staff will contact the new trustees if you're new to the committee to let them know about when the next meeting would be. And Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, my question is about the upcoming Committee of the Whole meeting, which is next week. We have a number of topics on the agenda so far, so just a heads up, you may want to go in and take a look at the topic spreadsheet. We have Spire Awards is on there again. Governance review, so I'd like to encourage, there's a couple people that haven't filled out that survey as yet. And if you're like me and forgot whether you did it or not, if you click on the link again, it will tell you. You already took this survey, so I was relieved. But there are a couple outstanding, so it doesn't take long, and I think there's some great value in completing that. There is the Near North Ombudsman implications, trustee expense governance policy, efficiency items with Trustee Gray, and setting priorities and processes for our coming year. So those are the things that are on there now. If there's anything that needs to be added, please let me know, or similarly, if there's anything that needs to be subtracted. And lastly, in the spirit of our transitions, Superintendent Podra-Barrick has a small learning module around the suspensions and appeals processes for us. I know there's been some talk, did we or didn't we receive training, but there is some updated offering that way for all trustees. So the question is whether you would be willing to arrive at, say, 5:30 for that, so we don't so we don't need to add on an extra meeting day or anything. Does that seem to work for people generally? As you'll recall, all trustees are alternates to that committee, so it's useful to have that training. Okay, if there is a big issue with that timing, please let us know. If not, we will go ahead at 5:30. Is that good, Superintendent? Yep. Yep. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So there, I see no more committee reports, so we are up to trustee questions and comments. Do you have any questions or comments this evening? Going once, going twice. Okay, sold. We are now up to 6.0. We have exhausted our agenda, and I declare this meeting adjourned.